Hi everybody, my name is Darren and I want to welcome you all back. Oh my Lord. I want to welcome you all back to the dazathought podcast. Me giving my thoughts and my opinions on the subjects that matter to you so that we can all elevate and move into a better direction. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more actually. For those that don't want to listen to the preamble, if you want to jump forwards maybe about 10 minutes, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, which is me answering the question, who would I choose between Wolverine and Deadpool? So just to talk about the podcast, in fact, there's two elephants in the room I want to address for today. And as I said, the preamble here is going to take about 10 minutes. So I want to say thanks to my friends and my family specifically who gave feedback on the first episode. You guys are the MVP or the MVPs, and I really do appreciate you all, man. Which kind of brings me to the elephant in the room, and before I address that elephant in the room, I want to say thanks to the viewers. I looked at like the viewing hours of episode 1 and I'm shocked. I don't remember what it was. I think it was like about 12 hours or something like that, which is minuscule. It's nothing in comparison to YouTube content creators, but it is just a lot more than I expected, and I gained subscribers. Thank you. Honestly, I guess somebody out there is interested in what I have to say. So to touch on the podcast, like where am I going with this podcast? So I basically have a running list of subjects and questions that matter to people I come across. Friends, family, and as of late, I drive for Lyft, which is an Uber alternative. And a lot of the passengers have given me some great ideas for episodes. Thank you to you guys as well. And the idea is to offer my thoughts, offer my opinions, and whilst doing so, try to address some things to bring people to a better place in life. I'm not saying that I am the catalyst to bringing people to a better place in life. I just would love to see everybody living their best life. And if me giving my thoughts and my opinions on something to that betterment, if it helps, then I'm all about it. It is just what I'm about. It's what I'm passionate about. And this platform is going to be a way for me to learn public speaking. Most of what I present is unscripted. For the most part, I'll make maybe bullet point notes and stuff. But it's practice, and 10, 15 years down the line, it'll be nice to stand in front of a university crowd and encourage them to live their best life, or to be able to speak to my colleagues and people I work with, people I'm around, family and friends, obviously, my children, and elevate them. That's what it's all about. And so at the moment, there's no production. From next episode, there will be some, but it's just all a learning process. The podcast itself is a work in process. So I just ask that you bear with me. I'm not too sure if you heard that, but there is definitely thunder and lightning outside. It is a grey, stormy day here in Aurora, which is just outside of Denver in Colorado. And this storm is supposed to last for at least the next 24 hours. So just stand by for it to provide production to this episode. So that's where the podcast is going. I have great ideas for this podcast, where I can see where I want it to go. And you guys can help. I have got a PayPal link in the description, and any proceeds that go in there are going to help in terms of buying cameras, lighting, and other things that will be part of this channel, an actual recording studio, putting one together, and also for some of the episodes I have coming up, I really want to have friends, guests on here to discuss situations, circumstances, topics with them, and I'd like to pay them for their time. You can help, but there is absolutely no pressure. I am gainfully employed, and for real, if nobody helps, I will do this myself. So thanks for hearing me out on that. So with the production, there are some things that I do need to work on. I need, like disclaimers, just visual effects as I'm talking. Visual effects that maybe go a bit further than having Deadpool and Wolverine as a splash screen on my TV, by the way. It's all in the pipeline, and I'm really excited about it. One of the things that I am excited about is some of the ideas that you guys have given me are, I wouldn't say they're necessarily bringing me out of a comfort zone, but they're definitely bringing me out of being just a creature of habit. Like, it was cool to spend a few evenings watching the movies. I watched the Wolverine, Deadpool, the first Deadpool, and then I watched Wolverine and Deadpool, which is a good film, by the way. There was a gentleman that I gave a ride. I think I gave him a ride to the airport, I think. But he asked me, there's going to be an episode of do I want to be the rich dad or the poor dad? But that's going to involve me reading the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's things that I'm really excited to dig into. There's going to be the need to record in different locations, and I'm excited for it. And I just hope that you guys can put up with my face and my voice while we try to. I feel like that was ironic timing. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, second elephant in the room, you guys can't actually see, which maybe then makes it not so much of an elephant, but makes it an elephant for me, because I have greatly reduced my intake of processed sugar. So right now, I'm talking to you and trying to expand on this episode through this storm, with the mother of all headaches, struggling to focus, and honestly feel like I could just put my face through this table and generate enough anger to spontaneously combust that log fire over there. Speaking of which, I think I should light it one time. I feel like that would be a good idea for an episode. Some ambience and stuff like that. Anyway, that's the second elephant in the room. This is definitely going to be a shorter podcast episode than the last one. And we're going to dive in. So I guess not the first disclaimer, but a disclaimer is to say, I'm not the greatest when it comes to expanding on films, TV, things that are TV in nature, celebrities and stuff like that. There are a couple of episodes where I need to expose myself to those things, but they're not my strong point. And so anything that I'm putting forward today is just based on me watching those three films, which is the Wolverine, Deadpool 1, and Wolverine and Deadpool, or Deadpool and Wolverine, sorry. And that's it. There are some scholars out there though. I do remember when I was living in New Jersey, and the company that I was working for there was a gentleman that I used to work with. And if you ever watch this, Chuck, I thank you. This guy, I remember he started breaking down the histories of the characters and the relationships between the characters of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That guy blew my mind for a good 20 minutes solid. I wish that I had absorbed all, or at least some, of what he said, but there are scholars out there, is my point. And again, Chuck, thank you very much, mate, if ever you get to watch this. So yeah, I'm not a scholar. I watch the films, I have my opinion, and let's go with it. So what I thought, right, is I thought of three ideas. Deadpool wins, by the way. I don't care. Deadpool wins. I do want to say, actually, a brief interjection. If you guys are watching this, Taraya and Jason, my neighbors, thank you for having this discussion with me yesterday. And one of the things that they pointed out actually is that before I record this, I haven't, but I should have watched X-Men Origins in order to get a good history on Wolverine. So yeah, but there was three aspects, right, that I thought I should consider, and it's so obviously the top one is who has the best film, and that one to me was Deadpool. The next one is who would I want in the entourage when we're out and about. That's Wolverine, hands down. And the third one was who would I actually want to have an in-depth conversation with about them. So the best film, Deadpool wins that, and I think primarily I'm biased in a lot of my decisions. Deadpool wins primarily because I can identify with the guy. And that's kind of like when we talk about trauma and trauma resolution, I can identify with some of the things that he's been through. I can identify with some of the ways that he has. And so honestly, that's why he wins. And I'm sure everybody out there has their own take on the subject matter. So the Deadpool film was funny. And you know what it is? I think one of the reasons that I liked it because it's funny is because the humor is very European in nature. If there's anything that I like, it is sarcastic humor. I think what I would consider to be stereotypical American comedy, I don't really like. I find it cheap and very slapstick. And this isn't to, by the way, to detract from any of the American comedies that are out there or any of the American comedians, for sure. There's great shows out there and comedians in and of their own right. I have a lot of respect for them. But there's just a certain type of comedy that appeals to me. And sarcastic comedy is always going to be the way forwards. A man taking the head off another man and making that moment funny, mwah, I am all about it. So there's that. You know, to mention Wolverine though, if we consider the films, that's why I lean towards Deadpool. The Wolverine though allows us to channel our, you know, for men, like it allows us to channel our inner John Wick, like minus the weaponry, obviously. Like the man that's like clearly been lifting the day before or even moments before the fight, coming in fully fledged with that unbridled strength, and just like the guy went into these fights with like, even when he was made mortal, he went into these fights with like the energy of 10,000 suns. The guy was deep, you know what I'm saying? And that's why, kind of segue in here, Wolverine is going to be the guy that I would want in my entourage. Deadpool, I mean, the guy can win fights. He can't die. But then, you know, when I have a bouncer behind me, you know, Lord, I don't ever want to reach that point. I hope I don't ever reach a point in life where I need to have a bouncer. That's crazy. Or security entourage. That's deep. Anyway, if I did, I would want Wolverine in there. I feel like the man can, like, because he has that stature, he can like wear a suit pretty well, can have his shades on, but the man can bring out claws. I mean, the man is a weapon. That's who you want in the entourage. I don't want a man that's going to lose a sword, lose a knife, and honestly, I don't want to have somebody that I'm squaring up to and having a security guard to step in between us for laughing at me. You know, there's a time and a place for humor, and having to smack up a couple of men, ain't it? Honestly, I feel like as this episode goes on, the storm outside is getting worse, and I don't know if I'm being told to shut up or whether it's providing emphasis for everything that I have to say right now. That's different. Anyway, so Deadpool wins the film. Wolverine gets in the entourage. Can you imagine that? You come across a man and you want to argue with him, and a guy steps from behind him and just like emits claws from the back of his hand. And not just any claws, adamantium claws. That's a whole new level. It really is. Then who would I want to have a conversation with? I feel like if I had watched X-Men Origins, I may have gone with Wolverine. But I watched what I watched, and this is just, you're getting what you get. And I really feel like I can identify with Deadpool. And primarily it's because of how he lives his life. Like when you look at the psychology of him, I'm not a psychologist, by the way. This is just me and my speculations. But, you know, masking himself, he always has that mask on. He's always covered. He lives behind who he wants to be, but isn't actually that person. And I think that that's powerful. Discussing life with those types of people, I've come across them. I used to be that way. Yeah, it's really eye-opening discussions that you end up having with those people. Two of the things that I really took from the films, there's the rise of the anti-hero. I think that's point one. And then point two, more poignantly, more importantly, is what happens when men specifically do not resolve trauma that's been experienced in their life. So the rise of the anti-hero, I've just noticed it, maybe not just recently. I mean, the Avengers film, I think the Avengers film came out, like the first one, I think it was like 2008 or something like that. Or was it even before that? It may have been before that. I think it was 2008. Somebody can correct me in the comments, that's fine. But there's this ability that we have, like we can begin to demonstrate and have an affinity with these characters that we can identify with because they're human. They're doing something great, but they're human. And to an extent, I think it's good. I think it's good to say to somebody, you know what? You may be you, and you may have your flaws, but you are still a great person. I do think that we've embellished this and taken it to the next level that it shouldn't have gone to. But the idea and the intention, or the potential intention, is good. Because we all have been created with a level of greatness. And the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 1 that God made us in his image. All of the qualities that we see him demonstrate, you know, all of the qualities, all of the characteristics that we see of God and in Jesus Christ as well in the New Testament, those are things that are all within us, and they reside within us regardless of our flaws. And I think that that's something that I would like you all to take away from today's episode. Not the key thing, or maybe just a key thing. You know, regardless of your flaws, regardless of where you are in life, regardless of your aspirations, that can be you. But it requires work. I think we have to caveat that, because what I was going to go on to say with regards to the idea of the anti-hero is we've gotten to a point where we think we can be the hero without putting in the work, because we should just be accepted due to our flaws. I have this problem, you should just accept me. I am great in my own right. No, you ain't, because there's definitely a big difference between talent and performance. Those are not the two words I was looking for. However, it's all well and good being able to do something, but you've got to be able to show that you can deliver on those things as well. And I think that that's the key part that many people miss in the Marvel films. For sure, it's the presentation of the anti-hero. It's the, when you look at the characteristics of the character as opposed to just the physical display of the character, what we're being told is that you can still be great in and of your own right. And they all put in work. To an extent, we could say that Tony Stark, Iron Man, puts in the greatest of work in that he loses his life for his friends, which the Bible tells us is the greatest expression of love. I can't remember where it says it, but it says, there is no greater love than this, that a man gives up his life for his friends. And I feel like this kind of taps into what I said in the last episode, where I stated that a key issue we have with today's generation and today's society in general, especially Western culture, is we all want to protest, we all want to be heard, but we all want to be comfortable at the same time. And that's something that the Avengers, the characters from the Marvel cinematic universe, Wolverine and Deadpool, demonstrate and say, you've got to put yourself out there, man, in order to get it. You can't just say, I've got this issue, I've got that flaw, and so that makes me great. You have to accept me and give me what I want. It just doesn't work that way. So that's the rise of the anti-hero. And these two, there's if ever there was anti-heroes, oh my gosh, these two, they make me laugh so much. And it's just the way that they've paired them up as well. It's a class act. The way that they pair them up and the way that they play off of each other and complement each other is it's fantastic to me. I thought it was very well done. So we have to move on from the anti-hero, and I feel that like probably the biggest thing I took away in terms of like humans, society, the betterment thereof, the idea of men specifically resolving trauma is poignant. And in this show, oh my gosh, like the way it stood out to me was on a whole new level. Stand by. There's a part where, and I'm sorry, this is a spoiler alert. Anyone that doesn't want the film to be spoiled, you should probably stop listening now, go watch the film and come back, or just skip forward maybe like 5 minutes or so. I'll give you a moment to do that. In fact, it's another reason to have some water. Health is wealth, people. Okay, so there's a part in the film where Wolverine and Deadpool are fighting each other in a Honda Odyssey. A very old, very beat up Honda Odyssey. I don't know why they chose a Honda Odyssey. There's probably something deep about it, but if you want to Google what a Honda Odyssey is, just they fight each other in there. And it's funny because neither one can die. They're stabbing each other and fighting each other. There's blood everywhere. Like, it's wild. Anyway, there's a part before they get to fighting where Wolverine looks at Deadpool, and I'm going to paraphrase what he says. I can't remember it line for line, but he states, what must it be like to be the person you are, have gone through all the things that you have gone through, and not matter, whilst not being able to die? And then Deadpool looks back at him. But what was interesting is, like, you know, you can read eyes, right? And I guess kudos to the Marvel guys, the Disney guys, for being able to demonstrate this. But the look back that Deadpool gives is, wait, but you've just said that about yourself, surely. You know what I mean? That's you. You just described you. And it kind of leads down this road here of what it's like when men don't resolve trauma. So I looked a few things up online. I found a few YouTube videos, and the majority of people that speak on this subject, oh my gosh, isn't it fun? Watching kids jump in puddles has to be one of the best things ever, especially when their parents are just like, what are you doing? Anyway, most of the people that commentated on or gave commentary on the trauma, the dealing with trauma that these guys demonstrate, or lack of dealing with it, is that they're flip sides of the same coin. You know, men don't deal with trauma, and so they can become unbridled anger, rage, bitter, spiteful, talking about Wolverine here, but also self-loathing. Or they can become like Deadpool, which is this response of like, I'm gonna just put on a mask and I'm gonna always have something to say. I'm gonna always be on broadcast. You know, he doesn't like silence. He doesn't like being with himself. And he's always got this mask on, in that he always has his suit on the whole time. Even when in Wolverine and Deadpool, even when he doesn't have it on, he wears a toupee and he's trying to be a salesman and so on and so forth. He's always got on some form of disguise. When I was going through my dark period, if you like, especially back in around November 2015, I thought up this idea of the Joker face, because that's kind of like who I was, always cracking jokes, always smiling. A way of knowing that a man hasn't dealt with trauma is that without even thinking about it, they will put themselves in a place of detriment in order to help other people. It will look like it's just by nature, but it's really reckless behavior. And so many people had this idea that they're flip sides of the same coin, but I don't think that's it. I think even in the way that Marvel, Disney have brought out Deadpool after Wolverine, kind of, I don't know if they've done it on purpose, or maybe I'm just overthinking, but like, I feel that Deadpool is a maturing point, to the negative, by the way, of what happens when men don't resolve their trauma or work towards trauma resolve and go through that Wolverine phase. Then they become Deadpool. Notice how Wolverine, he doesn't want to be this way. He doesn't want these thoughts. He wants to get away from it. You know, he turns to alcohol. In this particular film here, he turns to alcohol and has this seething anger and aggression that lies beneath. And it was just very interesting to come across this idea that, like, you know, having gone through my own personal experiences with unresolved trauma and not dealing with poor experiences I've had, etc. It was just interesting to see, like, I've been both people, but just at different phases of my life, you know, different times of traversing problems and problematic periods. And so it really is important to deal with trauma. I'm going to get there eventually. But that's my thought on them compared. Definitely, like, the films and stuff like that, they speak for themselves and we can have fun with those conversations. But I feel like when we consider films that have heroes in them, there's always a message. Even with the discussion of Disney, the animated Disney classics, right? So me and Quinn at some point are going to have this discussion of Robin Hood versus Peter Pan. Stand by for that. But whenever you have these hero, especially anti-hero films, there's always a message in there. I mean, honestly, that's just TV programming. You know, there's a message being put forth. And the idea of trauma resolution in this film was poignant. They both exist because the truth is Wolverine and Deadpool are the same person. The maturing point, I would say, when you get to you go through the Wolverine phase where you basically desensitize yourself through some escape route, whether it be alcohol, whether it be sex, whether it be reckless spending, whether it be just outbursts of anger, and often just self-destruction, basically, a self-loathing. Remember how Wolverine kind of became angry, and embittered. You know, he killed someone that he loved, which is something else that we should take from the idea of unresolved trauma. The people, you end up hurting yourself the most because you end up at some point of unresolved trauma hurting the person or the people that you love the most. It's really important that we take that away. So Wolverine tries to escape who he is, what he's about, why he's there, doesn't want to think about it, wants to, you know, desensitize with the bottle. When we get to the Deadpool stage is, all right, it's almost a defeat. Like, notice how the masculine energy of Wolverine becomes the, I'm not going to say feminine, the less masculine energy of Deadpool. And honestly, at times when I was watching the film, there may be questionable masculinity of Deadpool. It defeated. The guy is so defeated that he just identifies with his trauma. He's like, right, well, throws hands in the air. This is who I am. And that's like a progression of how trauma, unresolved trauma, will get you as a man. You know, you start off by fighting it, and then you get to a point where you just begin to identify with it, when really you should be identifying it and dealing with it. Man, I feel like I could go down so many different roads discussing this. But I don't want to go down too many different avenues. I want to kind of leave it there. Not necessarily leave it there in terms of stopping talking, for those who might be getting bored with my face. But dealing with trauma is probably, especially in today's Western culture, where I saw a YouTube video just yesterday where they was, you know, discussing how people in Japan, some people just literally work themselves to death. You know, we've become a culture, as we as the world begins to just get taken over, honestly, by crony capitalism, the levels of trauma, the levels of depression just begin to elevate and escalate. We have increase in suicide rates, depression, and so on and so forth. A lot of negativity. And how do we deal with trauma then? That's actually a good question. This is 100% unscripted. How do we deal with trauma? I am a man, and you'll probably see this as we go through further episodes. Like, I do like to talk things through to resolve. Maybe that's because of my job by nature. I'm not too sure. I do like to bring about resolve. I would say the beginning, to begin dealing with trauma, I mean, obviously you first have to see that it's there and accept that it's there. Not accept it as being you, but you should, I think, see it and then identify it. This kind of sounds very similar to, so in my regular job, I am an information security analyst, wanting to grow in the vulnerability, or growing in the vulnerability risk management space. And so there's an acronym, DARK, of how we deal with vulnerabilities that exist in our environment. And so the DARK stands for detect, assess, remediate, and then confirm. And I think that we can resolve trauma by taking that same approach. And we're about to find out if that's true. So we're going to detect it. You can only detect a problem if you already live in a healthy space, because it allows you to perform a gap analysis. You can only, I aspire, of late, I've been going down this road again of rediscovering my Christianity roots and developing a relationship with Christ again. And that's now my standard. When I carry out the gap analysis of my life, that's the standard by which I attain to. I'm far from being a role model Christian. Definitely do as I say, don't do as I do. But that's the goal. I would like to be a role model Christian. The Bible does tell us, we should be perfect as He is perfect. Even if you don't ever reach perfection, that's not a reason to not want to reach perfection or try to reach perfection. And as the saying goes, if you shoot for the stars or aim for the stars, one of the worst things that can happen is you'll land on the moon. So in order to detect, we need to make sure that we're taking good stock of who we are and how we are, where we are, our environment. And so we do that by carrying out the gap analysis. So for myself, I declare my standard. And so as I'm living and as I'm dealing with things and traversing life, that's what I assess myself, that's what I carry out the gap analysis with. It's like, okay, I can do better in this area, or maybe I can do this that way. Maybe I shouldn't really do this or say that, or, there's just different ways that we start to regulate our lives. As we do so, we start to identify problems. And so we have systems in place. That will help us to detect problems, vulnerabilities, risks, threats that exist in our environment. So you can use, you have in every enterprise, you'll have a way of scanning for vulnerabilities, proactively looking for problems that reside and exist in our environment. And then you also have response. It's like, okay, we've detected this and we're going to alert. And so that's kind of like the detection phase. If you live according, so the D is and how to begin resolving trauma in your life is to live according to a standard that is greater than you and doesn't have you or how you feel, your emotions, as the baseline of direction, basically. Compass, that's a better way of probably putting it. The beginning is have a standard that is a side of you as the compass of your life. That's number one. For me, it's Christianity. For somebody, it might be being a good person in some other way. You could be maybe, I'm also a track athlete. I love running track. That is a compass in my life. You know, there's many compasses that we can have. I subscribe to Christianity. I will also put it towards everybody else that you should try it too. That's what I'm called to share. So then once we've detected, we then need to assess. And so by assess, generally it's where you take stock of the problem. So we've noticed that there's an issue. We've been alerted to there being a problem. Maybe you're drinking too much. Maybe you're demonstrating some form of self-destructive behavior. Maybe like myself, in repeatedly failing relationships. Vulnerable moment. You know, being results of being an absent father, which is an episode that will be coming up. You know, not going to deal with that right now. Not going to deal with that right now. If you identify things about yourself that don't subscribe to the standard that is external of you, there's a problem and you need to assess it. If you're unhealthy, if you're doing things that are taking you down a road of increasing lack of health, just there are ways of identifying. So that's we've detected. That's how that's the detection phase, right? So you move into the assess. The assess is, okay, how does this problem affect me, and what avenues are there for me to begin remediation? So here we look at how bad the problem is. So imagine if you are like Wolverine and you've turned to alcohol. You're just drinking way too much unnecessarily. That's a problem that needs to be addressed. And so look at the assessment. All right, so definitely drinking like this is going to be, okay, it's going to mess up my liver, it's going to mess up my mind, the training that I'm putting in, it's going to detract from the gains, it's going to maybe send me retroactively back the other way. Like, we assess the impact and we begin to work out how to go about the remediation steps. Then you go about the remediation. So, sorry, I need to backtrack one. So with the assessment phase, during the assessment phase, that's where you're gonna find out how this problem came about in the first place. It's like, okay, so you've been alerted, how did this problem show up? And we can use therapists and we can use counselors. For me, I would dig into my Bible, spend time in prayer. Like, they're all ways of working out how this problem got in the first place. Because it's important that once we go through remediation, we stop that from happening again. And so we utilize the avenues that are available to us in order to go about remediation. But we figure out, so sometimes I feel like it will make it too complex if I try and talk about the outliers. Let's forget about the outliers. So we've detected a problem, we assess the problem, we figure out how this problem arose in the first place. Then we go through remediation. There's no point in me reading my Bible and understanding how a problem came to be and taking no action, that's a waste of time. There's a random saying that floats around sometimes of, do you mark your Bible or does your Bible mark you? I.e., are you someone that sits there and highlights and make notes and just feel happy about that? Or do you actually take it on board and then act accordingly? The same bi-weekly, I see a counsellor, Dr. Philip, great guy, by the way, and has been really helpful in terms of, one of the best things I like about him is every time I leave his office, I feel like I have homework, and it keeps me engaged with this process of just being a good person, not a good person, being a content person, honestly, being in a good place. He's a great guy and I'm thankful for him. But when I go and see him bi-weekly, it would be pointless if I was to hear what he has to say and hear the ideas he has for remediation and then go, cool, all right, yeah, see you in 2 weeks, mate. And then just like forget everything for the next 2 weeks. It'd be pointless and a waste of money as well. Lord have mercy. America's healthcare system. Maybe we should do an episode. Maybe we should do an episode on that. And so we go through the remediation process. If you're, someone that drinks too much, then the remediation process is going to be obvious because you won't be drinking as much. And eventually, you start to remediate how that problem came to be in the first place. Sometimes this is harder to do than you think. After remediation's been carried out, you have confirmation. Confirmation that the problem doesn't exist anymore. I think, in terms of vulnerability risk management in an IT environment, that's pretty straightforward to do. I'll scan for that problem and that problem doesn't exist anymore. How that plays out in the real world, I think is a lot more complex than that. I feel like there are some things I could touch on, but they're kind of personal, and so I won't venture down those roads. But there are ways, maybe there's instances of a situation where usually you would be triggered to respond in a certain way, and you come across that situation and you don't respond in that same way. It's like, maybe that's confirmation in and of itself. But that's how I feel you can deal with trauma. Detect it. You're alerted to the fact that it's there. Assess it. How did this get here in the first place? Right down to the root of the problem, and you use your avenues available to you to help you identify. Then you go through the remediation process, because once you know why something is and how it got there, you can remediate and eradicate it from your life. So then that's the remediation. And then you need to find out over, usually time tells all things, and that's how you confirm that it's not there. Ultimately, the reason for having to deal with trauma is the thing that these two guys went through, and that is dealing with the fact that unresolved trauma will hurt you most because you have hurt someone that you love or people that you love the most. I mean, Wolverine accidentally, because of his unbridled anger, rage, unprocessed thoughts, etc. I mean, he kills the woman that he loves, And I guess ultimately that is the peak of unresolved trauma. You could, in effect, kill somebody because you have not put yourself into a good place, and you could kill someone that you love. It's really interesting thoughts. So I'm going to leave it there. I do want to thank you for listening. So who would I choose between Wolverine and Deadpool? I mean, in terms of the films, I've answered those three questions earlier on. In terms of the films, the entourage and the conversation. But the truth is, Wolverine and Deadpool are different stages of the same person who has never resolved past trauma. And the important thing that I think we have to take away from the films, as with a lot of anti-hero films, is the fact that dealing with trauma, living a healthy life, mentally, physically, emotionally, according to a standard that is not you, is always going to be the way forwards, and is also a preventative measure. If you live in a life according to a standard that isn't you, a healthy standard that isn't you, then I feel like you're in a good place. It's when we make ourselves and become self-centered, make ourselves a standard, self-centered, sometimes selfish, entitled, and then just kind of move through life with our feelings. I feel like that speaks like a whole generation from California. I'm joking. Yeah. The way to prevent trauma is to live a life according to a healthy standard that isn't you. And that is my takeaway from watching the films of Wolverine and Deadpool. And until next time, that's been a thought. Take care.